Hello and welcome to Sex in the News. We are the Siegel Brothers. We've got a bunch of stories for you tonight. First, we have kind of a trio of stories about some new information related to contraceptive methods. We'll talk a little bit about how cold weather can cause winter vagina. Vermont is now the first state in the United States to require access to condoms in all middle and high schools. To start with, we have a couple of these stories here.
Yes,
and let's start with this
doing
one.
a lot of updates on current tech or old tech waiting to happen
Right.
In the arena of contraception, especially methods for men. This one I think we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, but now officially an award winner, Dyson Award, whatever that is, for innovative birth control for men, what is being referred to as the Testicle Bath. So picture just a little cup. We'll have our producer put up a picture.
Almost like a cozy, like a beer cooler.
Like a short beer cozy, exactly. That a guy fills with water and kind of squats over and, tea bags his scrotum in this, and ultrasound runs through the water. And apparently, according to the reporting, kind of immobilizes sperm for a little while. Right? This ultrasound-based, reversible, hormone-free male contraceptive for home use.
Right. I like the description.
A baby-blocking bidet.
Yes. Yes. That's. I was just going to say. I really like that.
And what's the quote? How is the scientist describing it?
Oh, you teabag your way to temporary infertility. Right.
Nice.
Now, again, I think the
There's
idea.
a kickstart worth looking at.
The idea is great, and that's really the goal of contraception, that it is easy, it's reversible,
right,
and it's safe. Right? And this really covers all three of those bases, right? But the article also does go on to say, don't throw out your morning after pills yet. Because this is a great idea, but we don't really know if it'll work. It hasn't been tested yet. It's been designed. The design has gotten these awards. It's starting to be out there, but the testing has not yet begun. So we don't really know the effectiveness.
Yeah.
But I really hope it works.
It really has. It's been a long time that there's been talk of any day now there's going to be this male birth control method. Always thought it would be a funny kind of test of gender roles for like a pickup in a bar for a guy to say, "Oh, don't worry, baby, I'm on the pill."
That's right.
Like, really?
Yeah, see if that works. It works the same way. Right? But again, I think the fact that we're getting closer to newer and newer things, and along those same lines, here we have an article from Science magazine. How an experimental birth control attacks sperm like a virus. Right?
We've been hearing a lot during COVID about the almost miraculous treatments of people who are sick and in the hospital with monoclonal antibodies. And here they are using pretty much the same technology to kind of target. It's interesting. A woman's body does naturally see sperm as foreign invaders. Right? So from the moment of ejaculation, if we're talking about penis-vagina intercourse, as soon as those sperm end up in the vagina, they're in immediate peril.
Exactly.
Right? The pH is wrong. Her immune system is recognizing these foreign invaders. So it's kind of like, the dandelion seed thing. It's the power in numbers, right?
That's right.
So
yes.
when next time, if someone is complaining that you're too lazy, just tell them that you're tired because you're cranking out 5 to 6 billion sperm a day. It's hard work. We need a rest once in a while.
That's right.
So the odds are stacked. I mean, the fact that it happens is kind of, it really is.
I've said that a lot. I'm amazed that it occurs at all.
We use that kind of tired, almost religious sounding word, miraculous, but it is miraculous that of the millions of things in the way of it happening, perfectly every time,
Right.
with really very statistically insignificant exceptions. That's kind of miraculous. But we also live in a world where we finally recognize even most of the most conservative religions in the world recognize that sex is not only for reproduction anymore, that it's a way for people to express their love and affection for each other. But if people want to share sexual activity, especially if that includes intercourse, and don't want to make a baby, well, we remember where babies come from, and it has to be an intentional effort to prevent that.
Right.
So if the technology can help, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, instead of a guy going to sleep with a roll of stamps glued around his penis to test if he has erections in his sleep, now he can just wear a ring that monitors his sleep, his heart rate, his erections. It's good we have 21st century technology.
That's right. And, and I think the great thing about this, and this is already in clinical trials, this is already shown to be effectiveness, unlike the sort of dippy cup method. This is really showing already that it's very, very effective. And again, it hits all of those elements. It costs very, very little. It's reversible. It's temporary. And it's going to be really, really convenient because they've already begun the sort of delivery vehicle on like sheets of film. Remember the contraceptive film?
Oh, yeah.
By putting it on that, and it's contraception that lasts for basically 24 hours. It's
awesome.
very, very short-lived. So they're also saying it's a great option for women in particular who have infrequent sexual activity. Right? But for me, part of the great news in this, not just a new and possibly very cheap and effective method of contraception, but they're now looking at applying this same technology to treat herpes infections, HPV infections, and HIV infections.
Well, I mean, if they can the way they're targeting vaccines and these monoclonal antibodies to attack specific anything, virus. I mean, the sperm is basically, again,
It's protein.
all the religious symbolism aside, a sperm isn't really technically even a human cell.
No, it isn't.
Right?
It really isn't.
It's a DNA torpedo.
Right.
It doesn't have a nucleus.
Well
It
put.
doesn't reproduce. It doesn't eat anything. It's just a DNA torpedo. Right? And it's only half. Right? 23 instead of 46. So if there's ways of keeping that from, keeping that sperm from that egg, the sperm goes into the egg. That's not I know that could be other things. Talking about the sperm going into the egg.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So it's great. And we're seeing this with, as you mentioned before, with even the COVID vaccines, that with this technology, right, you just have to design sort of the warhead, if you will, for that particular protein. And it's like a plug and play technology. And I think there's great potential there.
Nice.
One more on this sort of theme of contraception, birth control, and new technology, particularly, these were really more non-hormonal, but this is sort of revisiting sort of something that's already been in use, but it's a relatively new discovery. So it's kind of good news for a technology that's already there.
Right.
We talked about the morning after pill, right? Emergency contraception.
Sold under the brand name Plan B, right? Which implies...
They still have Previn?
Yeah. But Plan B, I like the name because it implies,
Right.
in which people need to remember, that it shouldn't be one's primary birth control. But as Plan B, it's designed for contraceptive failure. So for example, before this, if a couple was relying on a condom and the condom broke, then really there was nothing much to do except pray and wait for the period. Right? Now, if a condom breaks, there's this, again, a kind of a technological advance, this FDA-approved medication, which with all the controversy and people intentionally trying to conflate the morning after pill, which is birth control, which prevents pregnancies, with a drug called Mifeprex, which induces abortion. So there's a lot of, especially the religious right, who's just as vehemently opposed to Plan B because they think it's an abortion pill.
Right, which it isn't.
Right? It isn't. It's birth control. It's over the counter, except for some bullshit about 15-year-old girls, this kind of mixed approval.
Right.
It's over the counter if you're 16 or older, but you need a prescription if you're 15 because swallowing pills is too complicated for 15-year-olds to wrap their head around. But all that aside, especially with the Supreme Court likely moving the way they are this week, women need to just, keep this in the medicine cabinet, keep it in the nightstand. Men, there's no reason why men can't buy Plan B for their daughters, for their wives, right? It's a sexual health prevention technology. It shouldn't be. There was all this craziness when it came out that men are going to buy it and rapists will use it to cover their tracks.
That's right.
Right?
That's
like,
right.
yeah, someone's going to rape a woman, then he's going to force her to take Plan B so she won't get pregnant and bust him.
Right.
Right. Like,
Well, I mean, again, now realistically, there are abusive relationships where the guys do things like that. But I think, just wanted to put that out there, but to reinforce the idea that, let's not define, anything by the rare exceptions.
right.
And that's what I think people have a
And
tendency
again,
to do.
only because it's sex.
Right.
Of all of the things that we buy that can kill and maim us in a million different ways, right? There's no restrictions on, we can go buy cases of booze, we can buy lighters, we can drive cars recklessly, but you want to use a chemical to alter your fertility, now we're getting into some restrictive areas.
Which, now again, in under the category of blows my mind how incredibly stupid things can be, right? How come people have to be treated that way and to take a pill that is safe as well as effective? They need all of this special dispensation and prescriptions and all of that, but any idiot, and they are idiots who do this, any idiot can go into a gun store and buy a 100-round magazine.
Well,
Right? Not to mention the gun to shoot that 100-round magazine in. But to take birth control, you have to go through all these hoops.
right.
To buy automatic weapons, you don't need any of it.
Well, do you remember those laws? I'm sure some of them are still on the books, mostly in the Deep South, about sex toys.
Oh yeah, Alabama.
If a sex toy looked like a penis, by law, it could not vibrate and had to be sold as a condom demonstration tool.
Right.
If it vibrated, it was not allowed to look like a penis and had to be sold as a personal massage device. So apparently there was some very tense sexuality educators popping up all over the Deep South, buying theirs.
That's right. Buying their condom demonstration tools.
Right? It's so childish.
It really is. It really is. All right. But what triggered all of this, right, was the fact that we have this emergency contraception, this Plan B, this morning after pill, and the recommendation and the instructions had always been you can use it up to 72 hours after unprotected sex.
Or contraceptive failure.
Or contraceptive failure, right?
Right.
Now, this new study has just come out and shown, and this was in a Canadian journal. It was done in the Department of Family Medicine, the University of Montreal in Quebec, Canada. And what they're showing now is that this Plan B, this emergency contraception, is effective 5 days after.
That's excellent.
Right? Which is really good news. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, while we can say on the one hand, well, 3 days is a decent window, but it may not be. Right? It really may not be. So the fact that this has effectiveness 5 days after, I think is a really good bit of news.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely wanted to bring that
Next
to
time you're at the drugstore, buy one, even if you might not think you need it. Just keep it in the house.
That's right.
keep an
Unless,
eye
of
on the
course, you
expiration
live up north or in the Midwest and you're experiencing winter now,
Oh, now we have
or
a
about
very,
to be coming
we have
into
a very
winter.
serious story up next.
Indeed. Indeed. You wanna take that?
Well, as the headline reads, cold weather can cause winter vagina. And it's bad news for your sex life.
Right. And I think one of the first lines in there is that, winter vagina is a thing.
Just like lips get chapped, and you gotta be careful of that cold, dry air, right? Dry autumn and winter air depletes moisture from our bodies, leaving our skin dehydrated and cracked from our sinuses to parts below.
That's right. Right. Now, there's been a bunch of things written on that. But I will also say that, there are a number of doctors that debate that, right? Whether or not particularly vaginal tissue can be affected by environmental factors. And I mean, again, I don't have a vagina, right? Just wanted to be upfront, okay, is my share. And without having a vagina, I can't say what it's like to have one in the wintertime, but I know that all parts of body can get dry and chafed, and especially in the wintertime when there's dry air, when we spend so much time inside in the heat.
I don't know. I mean, it would seem that the vaginas would have to be exposed to the cold, dry air, right? Which they tend to be kind of potential spaces. Another myth people tend, especially like 7th grade boys, think that vagina is like a paper towel tube, right? It's a potential space.
Right.
So it's closed most of the time. It's a mucous membrane. It does produce its own moisture and wetness and lubrication. So like I'm looking at this list of symptoms they call of winter vagina. Discomfort, irritating or burning sensation, discomfort during sex, going off sex.
I assume that's avoiding sex.
Because it's Canadian, right?
Yes.
Speak a different language. Difficulty getting aroused and reaching orgasm. The surface of the vagina looking pale and thin, narrowing or shortening. This sounds like menopause. This sounds like estrogen deficiency.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like, it's dry and cold.
And and that's part of the debate. There are some doctors that say, no, you can't get that, quote, dry vagina. That's generally something that you would see with menopause.
Dehydration,
it's a lack of
right?
estrogen.
From the inside, not from the outside.
But I think there's also a part of that. And again, the more we spend in this dry indoor air, and I think it does kind of wick moisture out of our body.
So, in case you're worried, and first of all, if any of these symptoms are going on, don't listen to us talking about this goofy story about winter vagina. See your
doctor.
gynecologist.
Yeah.
Right? Because no, sex is not supposed to be uncomfortable or painful ever.
That's
there should not be burning sensations or irritation. But if you suspect you may be a little dry from the cold, they offer some advice. Her top 9 tips: an apple juice a day, eat your greens, right pair of melons, talking about vaginal pH and eating lots of good fruits and veg, bunch of coconuts, beta carotene from carrots and sweet potatoes, less stress, increase the humidity like a humidifier in the house, like to move it, physical activity, and ban the bubbles. Now there is always a good idea. No vagina should ever be exposed to fragrances, perfumes, scented tampons, all the rest of this crap, because of the messages that so many women get their whole lives growing up. Remember those ads from like Lysol in the 50s? They were horrible. They made women like, you don't want your husband coming home from work finding you not fresh, right? Yeah. Like they just...
I hope that was not Lysol.
Lysol made douches. Oh, yeah.
Right.
They did. And Massengill and all of those.
Yeah.
Right? And the message was, you stink down there, so you better buy all these products because your husband will be turned off and he'll leave you for a better smelling woman. Right? A healthy, clean vagina. That's the key, right? And like all other bodies, there's a difference between a natural body aroma and a funk, right? If someone is unclean or unhealthy or sick, then we're talking about funk. Otherwise, vaginas aren't supposed to smell like chamomile tea or lilies of the valley or whatever else.
Was it Mel Brooks, 2,000-year-old man, right? He said, one thing that's changed, we've got a spray and a spritz for everything, and you got to smell like a fruit or veg. You walk by a fruit stand and get horny. Right? That's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. So and I think that's really one of the cautionary tales in that as well. That we should not be ashamed of what our body is and does naturally.
Yeah. So this is really exciting news, and this is one of those I would not have expected to have ever seen.
It seems this day and age,
right?
as they say.
As Larry said in the intro, Vermont is now the first state to require access to condoms in all middle and high schools. The law was created in an effort to prevent STDs and unintended pregnancy. That's another classic problem with sex ed, this idea of putting ideas in kids' heads. That if you talk about it, it's going to make them want to do it.
Right.
Which, of course, is just ridiculous.
Of course it is.
So many ways.
Of course it is. And there's something I did kind of highlight on the back here as well. And this is just a statement from somebody in a public health program. Right? And they talk about citing the research that's been done, that condom availability programs increase condom use, increase condom carrying behavior. That's another big one too. You can't use it if you don't have it. Promote abstinence or delayed sexual initiation among adolescents and reduce STD rates. Studies of school condom availability programs find a significant increase in condom use among sexually active students, but no increase in sexual activity.
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent.
And it's such an important point.
Yeah, that calls out the bullshit that if you have condoms available to kids, that's giving them permission to have sex.
Right. And who wants anybody's permission other than the person that they want to have sex with?
When has a kid ever asked parents' permission?
Mom, Dad said it's okay if I have sex, if it's okay with you.
Can I borrow the car
seem to
tonight
work.
and have sex? Right.
So, there is some good news, and again,
as always,
in the middle of all this stuff that's going on in the opposite direction, this is nice to see something that is moving forward.
Yeah, and we'll wait to see. We'll keep you posted if it gets challenged, if people start freaking out about condoms in schools.
Right, so good start. All right, and as we like to end our show, we
have a couple little segments we bounce back and forth between.
Exactly.
Either a little poetic justice to call out some hypocrisy where we see it, or in the case of our piece this week.
All right, something that we like to call WTF. All right, so it doesn't outrage us.
Right.
It just
makes us
WTF.
go. Right. So an activist, where was this?
This is in Los Angeles, I believe.
Yes, in Los Angeles. Activists held a small dong march to end the shaming of tiny penises.
Now, we don't know exactly the size of that march. Right? We don't know how long it lasted. We don't know how wide their viewpoints were. Right? But this is one of those things where if you didn't see photos and you didn't see documentation, you just wouldn't believe it.
And we're going to have to share some with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Apparently, well, like they start here, it's not the size of the protest, it's what you do with it. Dozens of men have hit the streets for a small dong march seeking to end the so-called shame associated with having an undersized penis. So what did
the way they were promoting this event, apparently the organizers' event, were basically putting the message out to guys like, hey, all you guys with small penises, it's going to be found out anyway, so you might as well come out and join the march. Right? There's a rousing advert right there.
Yes, as we'll share with you some wonderful
Yeah, some of the
signs,
signage was great.
Right, protesters marching. All dongs are equal.
Yeah, Jesus had a small dong. Right? Wasn't there another one that said Jesus and Tucker Carlson
I would
have
bet
small penises?
money on that.
Right? There's like all dongs go to heaven.
Very
right?
nice.
And
very
then with
nice.
that, the more risque, right? The guy that was just trying to be, a little bit, a little edgier, bragging that his dong is not a choking hazard.
See, it's a public safety message in there too.
That's right. So the fact that this was an event, that this
Only
even
Los
happened,
Angeles, right?
Yeah, and I
Or I
don't
think
know.
it could be a British thing too. I think there was a British documentary about small penises.
But they had the good sense of making a film,
Right.
not being out in the street. But I mean, I'm really not sure what to make of this, really, other than the thing that strikes me the most is that this is just a whole nother level of narcissism.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know that there are a lot of guys who are really going to be out there standing
Bragging.
up, bragging, and standing up and fighting for their small penises.
Well, how about that compensation, right?
Yeah.
The Andrew Court wrote this article, and they did include some research from a year ago from an Only Buy survey, which interestingly found that the biggest earners tend to have the smallest penises. That men averaging 8-centimeter penises, remember it's Canadian, so we have to do the translation there. 8 centimeters. Apparently,
what we call a micropenis.
the threshold for a micropenis. No, I think it's like a half an inch, isn't it?
Yeah, 8 centimeters is about this.
No, that's 8 centimeters is about this, but micropenis is like this. But anyway, they found on average, by their calculations of what qualifies for a micropenis, men made an annual income of about $77,000. And men with 10 centimeters were more likely to be promoted.
So, some of these guys have big wallets.
You're right. Which, as we've learned from your bachelor party at the strip club, the girls knew exactly to go to the guy with the biggest bulge in his pocket, but it wasn't in the front.
It wasn't in the
It was
front.
in the back.
That's right.
They
that
knew
was a long time
They
ago.
knew who was paying the tab.
Indeed.
Dad got all the girls.
So, well, that will do it for this week's edition of Sex in the News. Thank you for watching, and tune in next Sunday for another edition.